It was a quiet, ordinary evening at home. The kind where everything feels like it's in place, and you let your guard down. The air was crisp as the fall breeze lightly tapped against the windows. I had just finished my dinner and was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone. My cat, Luna, as always, was curled up at my feet, purring softly. She was a quiet cat, independent, with her own little quirks. But I never thought anything strange of it. After all, she was just a cat. They do weird things, right? But that night was different. I had just finished watching a show when Luna suddenly jumped off the couch. She didn't meow or even stretch. She just jumped up and dashed to the kitchen. I glanced up from my phone and watched her disappear around the corner. Curious, I followed her into the kitchen. "Luna?" I called out. "What's going on?" She wasn't in the kitchen, but I could hear faint scratching sounds coming from the basement door. Now, that wasn't something I normally heard. We didn't keep anything in the basement that would be remotely interesting to a cat, so I was confused. I moved toward the door and glanced down at Luna. She was sitting at the top of the stairs, staring intently into the darkness of the basement. Her ears were flat against her head, and her body was rigid. The usual content purring I'd hear from her was replaced with a low, almost menacing growl. "Luna, stop!" I said, but she didn't move. She just stared, her eyes fixed on the basement door like she was in a trance. She had never acted like this before. I opened the door, not knowing what to expect. The air from the basement felt different, cold, damp. It made the hairs on my neck stand up. There was nothing particularly unusual about the basement itself. Old boxes, some furniture we didn't use, and a dryer. But the feeling in the air was off. It felt like the space was too quiet, almost like it was waiting for something. Luna stayed at the top of the stairs, watching me intently, her tail flicking back and forth nervously. I hesitated but decided to go down. Maybe I was being paranoid. I walked down the steps, trying to ignore the unease creeping up my spine. I flicked the basement light on, but it didn't help much. The low light cast long shadows, stretching across the floor. Luna followed me down the stairs, but she didn't go far. She stopped just a few steps behind me, her head turning sharply as she peered toward the far corner of the room. I tried to dismiss the growing sense of dread, but it was hard to ignore the feeling that I wasn't alone. Then I heard it, a faint rustling sound, like someone shifting their weight. At first, I thought it was the house settling, but then it happened again. Louder this time. I froze. Luna let out a deep, guttural growl, this time much louder. She didn't move. She just stared at the far corner of the basement. I followed her gaze. Behind the old furnace, I could make out a shadow. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was the shape of a person. I took a cautious step forward, and then it clicked. The person was crouching down, barely visible, their face hidden in the dark. I froze, my heart racing. Luna let out a deep, guttural growl, this time much louder. She didn't move. She just stared at the far corner of the basement. I wanted to shout, to run, but I was paralyzed in place. The figure didn't move. Then, the person shifted slightly, revealing just enough of their face to make my blood run cold. It was a man. His eyes were wide with panic. His hands were trembling, gripping something metallic, a knife. I could hear the sound of him breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling with each breath. He didn't look at me. He just kept his eyes on Luna. like he was trying to decide whether to move or stay hidden. My mind was racing. I had no idea what to do. Was he planning to hurt me? Was he waiting for the right moment? Luna's growl intensified. She didn't back down. She didn't show any sign of fear. She was standing her ground. I slowly backed up, inching toward the stairs. My heart was pounding in my chest. My hands were shaking. Every part of me screamed to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The tension in the room was unbearable. I could feel the stranger's eyes on me, but I couldn't look away from Luna. In that moment, Luna made a decision for me. She darted forward, right at the stranger, but not to attack. She stood in front of him, like a barrier between me and the danger. She hissed loudly, as if to say, "Not today." I took that as my cue. I bolted for the stairs, my heart in my throat. My mind was racing, but there was no time to think. I reached the door, slammed it shut, and ran upstairs to grab my phone. I called the police immediately, barely able to explain what I had just seen. The police arrived within minutes. By the time they got to the basement, the intruder had disappeared, but they found clear evidence that someone had been living down there for days. Old cans of food, blankets, and some of my belongings had been rifled through. The police said I was lucky. They believed the man was waiting for the right time to attack, but Luna's behavior had kept me safe. The stranger, when the police eventually tracked him down, was arrested. They said he was known for targeting houses in the area. He had planned to break in, take what he could, and hide in the basement until it was safe. He never expected anyone to be home. But Luna knew. Luna had sensed him long before I did. After the incident, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. How had Luna known? Was it her heightened senses? Or was there something more? Something supernatural? I started researching animal behavior. I learned that cats have an incredibly keen sense of hearing, smell, and vision. They can detect frequencies we can't hear, see in low light, and smell things we can't even imagine. Maybe that's how she knew he was there, hiding in the shadows. But what about the growl, the protective instinct? Was it just a cat's natural behavior, or was it something deeper? I don't know. I don't have answers. But what I do know is this. Luna saved my life that night. Without her, who knows what could have happened? Now, every time I look at Luna, I wonder, what else does she know that I don't? What else does she sense that I can't see? I'll never fully understand how she knew that man was hiding in our basement, but I'm thankful she did. Sometimes, our pets don't just share our homes. They protect us in ways we can't begin to comprehend. And for that, I will always be grateful to Luna. Have you ever had an animal warn you about something you couldn't see? A pet's strange behavior that saved you from danger? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences. And don't forget to subscribe for more spine-chilling true horror stories. It started with a small, innocent-looking black cat. At first, no one thought much of it, just a stray that wandered the streets, looking for food or warmth. But there was something about this cat that made people uneasy. Its eyes were too bright, too knowing, and its coat, as sleek as midnight, seemed to blend into the shadows, making it hard to notice until it was right there, watching. It began in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. One evening, an elderly woman named Clara, living alone in a modest cottage, opened her door to find the cat sitting on her porch. She thought it was odd, but harmless. She had always loved animals, especially cats, and decided to let it in for the night. The next morning, Clara was found lifeless in her home, her face frozen in an expression of terror. The cat was gone. The authorities couldn't explain it, and no one had seen or heard anything unusual. It seemed like an accident, a natural cause, perhaps even old age. But the death was too sudden, too strange. Then the cat appeared again, just days later, in another part of town. Mark and Sarah, a young couple, had just moved into their new home. They were thrilled to start this new chapter of their lives together. One evening, after finishing dinner, they noticed the cat sitting by their front door, staring at them through the glass. Sarah, having grown up around animals, opened the door, thinking the cat needed food or shelter. It slipped inside quietly, its eyes glowing in the dim light of the hallway. They let it stay for the night, assuming it was just a lost animal in need of care. But the next morning, both Mark and Sarah were found in their bed, cold and pale. The cause of death was undetermined, but the eerie silence of the house and the look of fear etched on their faces was undeniable. And just like with Clara, the cat was gone by the time anyone arrived to investigate. Now, the town was beginning to talk. People were scared, whispers of an omen or curse spreading like wildfire. Still, no one had connected the deaths to the mysterious black cat. Until it showed up again. This time, it was at the home of Michael, a local bar owner. Michael was known for his skepticism and tough attitude. He didn't believe in superstitions, curses, or anything that couldn't be explained. When the cat appeared on his doorstep, he merely scoffed at it and pushed it away. "Just another stray," he muttered, not bothering to let it inside. But that night, Michael's bar was eerily quiet. His employees went home early, and Michael stayed behind to finish some paperwork. He heard the scratching at the door, soft at first, then more insistent. He opened it, expecting to find the cat again. But when he looked down, the cat was nowhere to be seen. Confused, he shut the door and returned to his work, not realizing that the cat had slipped inside unnoticed. Later that night, Michael was found in the bar, lifeless. His face was twisted in horror, just like the others before him. But this time, a note was found under his desk. It was a cryptic message, written in a shaky hand. "The cat sees everything. The cat is watching. And when it comes to you, it's already too late." The police were baffled. There was no sign of forced entry, no visible wounds, nothing to explain Michael's death. But the cat was gone. Again. At this point, the pattern was undeniable. The same black cat, appearing at different homes, always before someone died. The authorities tried to warn the town, but no one knew how to stop it. People grew paranoid, refusing to open their doors, afraid of the cat's sudden appearances. But, despite their fear, the cat kept coming. The next victim was a young single mother named Jessica, who had just moved into a small apartment with her child. One night, while preparing dinner, she saw the black cat in her window. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but then she saw its bright eyes, staring through the glass. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Jessica had heard about the deaths and the rumors that surrounded the cat. But she didn't believe in such things. Still, There was something in the air that night. Something wrong. She opened the door, and like the others, the cat walked right in. The following morning, Jessica's neighbors found her on the floor of her apartment, eyes wide open, mouth frozen in an expression of horror. Her child was unharmed, but the terror in her face told the whole story. And then there was silence. The cat never appeared again. People tried to forget about the deaths, trying to convince themselves it was all coincidence. But even after months, the cat was still in the back of their minds. No one could explain it, and no one dared to test the theory. To this day, no one knows where the cat came from or where it went. It just appeared, claiming lives one after another. And while the cat itself is no longer seen in the town, its legacy lives on. The fear of the black cat has spread to other communities. And whenever a new death occurs, people begin to wonder, is the cat back? I've never been the type to believe in anything supernatural. I'm a nurse, rational by nature, and trained to explain things logically. But what happened to me, and what I'm about to share, still gives me nightmares. I never thought a cat could be tied to something so terrifying. It started last summer, in the small town of Ashfield, New Hampshire. I had just taken a new job doing home care visits for elderly patients. One of my assignments was a woman named Eleanor Price, 84 years old, widowed, quiet, and reclusive. She lived in an old Victorian house on the outskirts of town. It looked like something out of a faded postcard. Beautiful, but forgotten by time. The first day I visited her, something struck me as odd. As I walked up the cracked stone path to the porch, a black cat was sitting there. Not moving, not blinking, just watching me. I bent down slightly and said, "Hey, buddy," in a soft voice, but it didn't respond. No meow, no tail flick, just pure stillness. I stepped around it to knock on the door. Eleanor opened the door slowly. She was frail but polite. She smiled and said, "You saw him, didn't you?" I thought she meant her husband, or maybe a neighbor. I nodded and asked, "The cat?" Her face darkened. "He's not mine. He just comes when it's close." I didn't understand what she meant then. I thought maybe she was confused. But the next few visits made everything worse. Each time I came, the black cat was there, never inside, always watching the house. And Eleanor's condition? It was getting worse fast. Not just physically, mentally too. She kept saying strange things. "I can hear him in the walls," or "He's waiting." Not for me, for someone else. One evening, Eleanor asked if I could stay a bit longer. She seemed unusually anxious and didn't want to be alone. I agreed. Around 7:45 p.m., the power went out. The whole house plunged into darkness. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, and that's when I heard the scratching. At first, I thought it was the wind or a raccoon outside, but it was coming from inside, the walls, the ceiling, and the hallway floor. Eleanor sat silently in her chair, staring at the staircase. When I asked if she was all right, she whispered, "He's inside now." My heart pounded. Then the cat appeared at the living room doorway. I don't know how it got in. All the doors and windows were closed. It just stood there, watching us with those intense green eyes. Eleanor didn't scream. She didn't move. She just said, "He's chosen." Suddenly, the scratching stopped. The silence was worse. The next morning, I came back to check on her. The The front door was wide open. I rushed inside and found Eleanor dead in her bed. Peaceful, almost smiling. But on the wall above her, someone, or something, had scratched long, thin claw marks across the plaster. No one had a key. No signs of forced entry. The black cat was gone. After her funeral, I tried to forget about it, but I kept seeing the cat around town. At a gas station, sitting on a car roof, in the hospital parking lot, staring at me from a distance. I told myself it was just a stray. That's all it was. Until my colleague Jessica, another home care nurse, told me about her new patient on the west side. She said, "There's this black cat always outside his house. Creepy little thing." My blood ran cold. 2 weeks later, Jessica didn't show up to work. They found her in her apartment. No signs of struggle, no trauma, just dead. Same expression Eleanor had. And the claw marks? On Jessica's bedroom window frame, identical. That cat, it shows up before death. But it doesn't cause it. It announces it. Now, months later, it's outside my window. Right now, just sitting there. I haven't left the house in days. I've locked everything, covered mirrors. I tried praying, meditating, begging. But the cat just watches. No movement, no blinking. Just those glowing green eyes that seem to see right through me. I don't know what it wants. I don't know if it's truly supernatural or something we don't understand yet. Maybe death isn't random. Maybe it's chosen. Maybe we're marked. And the cat is just the messenger. And maybe this story wasn't supposed to be told. If you're watching this, and you've ever seen a black cat where it shouldn't be, sitting too still, watching too closely, don't ignore it. You were never meant to hear this, but now you have.